And then another thing is these demos are recorded and put on YouTube, if anyone doesn't know that. So the Quad City Woodturners has a YouTube page. Thanks to Bill. Bill does a lot of work for that, editing the videos and posting each one. And it gets pretty good views, a couple thousand maybe each video, and then a couple thousand subscribers on the channel. So it's a good asset for our club. And there's probably a lot of people out there that watch those videos that don't really know what this club is. So just to describe to them, this is the Quad City Woodturners Club. We meet, this general meeting is every third Tuesday of the month in Rock Island. You can look at our website for the address and everything, but it's at 5:30. It starts, and there's a demonstration each month that we do at the end of the meeting, and then that goes on YouTube, so that's the video that people watch. But it's a great club. If you haven't actually came to the club, maybe come watch a demonstration in person rather than just watching on YouTube. It's great, but come and check out the club. I think you'd enjoy that too. So tonight, the demonstration I'm going to do is an upside down salt shaker. It's kind of like a project demo is what I would call it. It's something I'll do start to finish on the lathe. I'm not going to make one that's colorful or fancy tonight. I'm just going to show you the wood turning part of it, the shape of it. It's kind of a cool thing. I did not come up with this. It's kind of a more known demo in the wood turning world. There's quite a few people. If you look up upside down salt shaker, you'll find them on YouTube. But this is basically the gist of it. So if you want to look on the TV, you can see it a little more clearly. But it's cool because it's a salt shaker, but there's no mechanism. There's no top piece, metal piece with holes in it. There's no plug at the bottom that you have to buy. You can make it all just out of a couple pieces of wood, pretty small pieces of wood. And so you can make a salt shaker with holes drilled in the top, but that's not really my style. I think this is a little cooler than that. Yeah. It's just kind of interesting. So it has a hole at the bottom. The cool thing is that salt does not come out if you just turn it sideways, back and forth. But up and down is when the salt comes out. So you can kind of see that on the lathe now. So it's just kind of like a hack of how to make something that might impress your friends or something. But the pieces, it's basically just a round shape, or you can make it any shape you want. There's just a few criteria that I'll go over through this. It's a hollow sphere is what I've got here, and then this inner piece is a plug that you fill it with. So the bottom kind of has a funnel shape to it with a very small hole that the salt is entered into, and it comes out that way too. So it fits in there, and then the stem goes up, and that hole goes all the way through to the top of the stem. So I've got one here. You can pass this one around. It's two pieces, so be careful with that. This is one cut in half. So you can see this hollowed portion. You can go as thin as you want with the wall thickness, make it really light, nice and thin. But really it's just critical that the top is kind of curved. It has nice smooth curvature to it, so it can't just be square at the top. It needs for the salt to jump up to the top and come down towards the center and fall in the middle. So I'll go through how to make these two parts. I'll start with the outer part. That'll be maple, and the inside I'm going to use walnut to do the little funnel and stem. But I think it's just a good project to try. It kind of highlights a lot of different things of wood turning. You've got spindle turning on the outside, you've got hollowing, drilling with the stem, so a few different elements of wood turning that it highlights. Pass this one around to you. You can pass this finished one around too. And then also, you can get creative with it. This was a goblet I had that broke, so I just put the plug at the bottom and made it into one of these salt shakers, so kind of funny. But just something you don't want to waste, but make it into a functional piece. All right, does anybody have any questions about the upside down salt shaker so far. These are just the couple blanks I'm going to use. The maple is for the outside. That's about 2.5 by 2.5. And the inside is about a 2 by 2 chunk of walnut. The species of maple works really good for hollowing the outside piece. And I've tried ash. Thing we forget on YouTube is they don't hear the questions from the audience, so it's good to repeat that. You have to fill it from the bottom, so I brought some salt with me. That's kind of the crappy part of this design, is it takes a little while to fill it, but you just kind of get it on there, give it some taps, and eventually it'll go in. Eventually, yeah. So that color I use, a lot of people have seen it. It's that shellac, really smooth, glossy color. But I think that helps with filling it because it makes this bottom funnel very smooth and easier to fill it. So give it some taps, it'll go in there eventually. It's gonna, when you turn it upside down, it's gonna lose a little bit, but obviously you won't be doing that all the time. You'll just set it on the table, pick it up, and it doesn't make much of a mess unless you start to shake it up and down, then it really releases. So that's the gist of how to fill it. Okay. I didn't get this mounted very true because it's not 90 degrees at the bottom. I could just go ahead and mount it in here, but I'm going to turn this around and put a tenon on it and flip it around so it's a stronger mount. Okay. So I'll just start with spindle rough and gouge, get it round. So this is hard maple. It's very dry. Great wood to turn, especially for this kind of project. I'm going to use my parting tool. Just put a little tenon on there. A little vibration. I'm using a one-way chuck with straight jaws, so no dovetail on the tenon. Go ahead and flip this around. Make sure I mount it nice and square, right into the bottom. So I want it running nice and true. Looks pretty good. All right, now I'm just going to get this rest of it knocked down. Okay. Now I'm going to start thinking about the shape. This is another one I made, just kind of a different shape with the bulbous shapes. On the inside of this one, it's more like a cone, tapered up, not as rounded at the top. And that works too, because you know the salt all goes straight up and falls down more in the middle than the outsides, if you can think about that shape on the inside. So I'll start off with the skew chisel. Going to raise my tool rest up a little bit to do planing cuts. Move it a little closer, and I'm just going to start kind of shaping a sphere like the one I passed around. So this will be the bottom. This section is where I'm going to hollow out from. Get going about 1500 RPMs. And I could try to, you know, make it a perfect sphere. I could go ahead and measure it, but I'm not going to do that tonight. You would just measure this. I've done a demo on how to make a sphere before. So you want to measure the diameter of your piece and then transfer that to the length. Go ahead and do it, I guess. Why not? Transfer that to the length, and then you want to kind of mark that. I like to take my parting tool and then define that. just for now. My piece is a little long, so I'm gonna get a little more vibration, but that's okay. I like to mark the center of it then if I'm making a sphere. Go ahead and work on the other side. Switch to the long point when I get more depth. I start to switch to the long point of the skew. It kind of helps me get in there deeper. So the bottom I want to leave about 1.25 inches diameter. That's not a perfect number, but around that. Just for the proportions of this piece being 2.5 inches diameter. I want it about half the total diameter. I want the opening to be about half of that. Okay, it looks kind of egg shaped, not really sphere right now. But I want to be careful. I don't want to take that area down too much because I still have to hollow out the inside. But still work the outside shape a little more before I go on to hollowing. Okay, now I'm going to switch over to hollowing. Move my salt, don't need that. I'm just going to take my live center out for now because I don't want to bump into it. So I just want to spend a second talking about end grain hollowing and the different techniques you can do here. You can drill it out. That's a pretty good, accurate way, fast way of doing it. But I think it's a good idea to practice with the spindle gouge of hollowing end grain. There's a few different techniques. Kind of a fun way, advanced way to hollow out end grain is called back hollowing. If you look up back hollowing on YouTube, people like Richard Raffin or a guy named Tomislav, I don't know if any of you have heard of him. He's a really good wood turner from Croatia. He's actually one of the guys that I've seen do this upside down salt shaker before. But anyways, back hollowing. So you basically don't get a catch, but I did. I'll clean that up first. So I've kind of got my tool rest positioned here at a 45-degree angle, so I'm kind of open to both axes. So I'm going to kind of dish it out first, and then back hollowing, you kind of change direction, and the tip of the tool goes up versus going in. So if you want to watch this carefully, you go in and then up. And that can kind of help you establish depth. So I can keep doing that. And this is a spindle gouge with a fingernail grind. Whoops. You can see those nice curls that maple gives you. So another way to hollow is kind of changing directions and cutting with the left wing. I was cutting with the left wing when I was back hollowing, but you're going in and going this direction. I'm going to kind of move the back of the handle over here more and pull that left wing, kind of pulling it into my body, more of a pull cut. Okay, I'm going to move this, or take this off for now, just because it's kind of in my way. And always remember where you put this, because I like to lose the safety things. Okay, I'm gonna raise my tool rest up a little bit. And now I'm gonna do less back hollowing, because you can kind of only do back hollowing to a certain point. A little too high. And then you have to switch back to that other technique I was showing you. See, I'm kind of at the point now where I can't do back hollowing. So I'm going to now establish my depth with my spindle gouge. You can drill with the spindle gouge by going directly in the center of the wood. Your tool rest has to be slightly below center. Find the center with the spindle gouge and just push straight in. You kind of have to lift the tool off the tool rest a little bit. Can't be too low, can't be too high. It has to be right at the right point. Okay, I'm going to turn it off, clear the chips, and just check my depth. Do the redneck measuring technique. Okay. I'm at the max I can go, pretty much. So I don't want to go any deeper. Don't want to go through the top. So kind of just scraping there with the left wing of the tool, just to remove some wood. Now I'm at the point where I can't do much else with the spindle gouge. I'm gonna have to switch over to a hollowing tool. So this is a easy wood gooseneck carbide cutter hollowing tool. It's good for small things like this, hand hollowing. It's got a flat portion on the tool, so if you want to back up your tool rest more, and you can get that flat portion, it'll give you a little more stability. But with doing something this small, I don't always find issues by having the neck out on the tool rest too. So I'm not going to start out like that. Right now I'll just keep the tool rest closer. And I want to make the wall thickness about 1/4 of an inch, maybe 3/8 of an inch, the whole thing. I'm not trying to get super thin. This is a functional salt shaker after all. So I'm having my forearm on the back of the handle. This handle is nice, it's longer. This is a good tool. I bought it used, but it's a pretty expensive tool if you have to buy it. This gives me a lot of stability. If it is the catch, my forearm kind of evaporates that pressure. Okay, so I've got kind of the bulk removed. This isn't the most fun thing to watch, so bear with me for another minute or so. Hollowing, you can't really see much what's going on the inside. So me, as the person hollowing, I have to rely a lot on the sound. I'm not going to get too thin on this, but if you were to get very thin, sound is really important. And then turning it off, clearing the chips, and feeling it with your hand. I'm fortunate here I can feel the whole inside. With bigger pieces, obviously, you're not able to get your hand in there. So I just backed up the tool rest so I'm able to use that flat portion and kind of get a little more refined cut. I can change my angle with the tool handle coming out. Now working on the very middle at the very back, there's always that little dimple that's hard to get rid of. So I'm just feeling my way with the cutter, trying to get rid of that, hitting it right in the center and then moving to the left of it, if I can. This is where you're relying on sound a lot too, and feel. Okay, I'm gonna leave that there. That's enough hauling for demo purposes. Clear this out. And I've still got my center line here, but also I have a flat bottom, so the shape is gonna be kind of off from sphere. And then I did go a little too deep, so I'm gonna be careful when I do the top. I don't wanna go too deep into it. That walnut one I passed around, I tried kind of a step at the bottom for the funnel to fit into. I'm gonna go ahead and try that here too. I kind of forgot about it at the beginning, but I think I left enough. So I'm gonna use my skew chisel and just with the long point, turn a little recess in there. And the depth of that is kind of important because it's gonna be how thick the top of that funnel is. Put a little chamfer on this edge because that's going to be exposed still. So I want that to look decent when it's finished. Okay, now I'm going to just work on the outside a little more, clean up my line in the middle, and try to make it nice and smooth. I'm not going to sand this at all, but I want it to be somewhat good looking. There's a little knuckle right here. I'm always looking at the top horizon of the piece. That can really tell me a lot where the imperfections are and what areas I need to work on. Okay, this isn't going to be a perfect sphere, but all right. Like I've talked about before in previous demos, on my finished cuts, I like to go really slow, trying to get as nice, smooth finish as I can. I'm going to pick my cut back up where I left it off here with the long point. When I'm planing with the skew into my body, with the short point I kind of can't see anymore and it's an awkward angle. So I like to stop and switch it around and pick it up where I left off. Okay, got this extra wood here, kind of in my way. I'm gonna switch to the spindle gouge. And just to be careful here, I'm going to check my depth, just so I'm sure I don't go through the top.
You go through the bottom of it.
It's a funnel.
Somebody over there is perfect.
Eldon? Yeah, it's no fun to go through the bottom of a piece, or top in this case. Okay, I'm also going to talk a little bit about jam chucks. So I'm just going to stop turning it there, and I'm going to part it off. Tool rest is a little too high for the parting tool. I want to drop it. If you notice, that was kind of awkward with the tool handle being so high. If you ever feel like that, you know, shut the lathe off and adjust something. Okay.
How much thinking do you have of knocking that out around?
Knocking this out around?
You know, the whole thing.
Oh, because it's kind of far off the chuck. how much, the question was how much danger there is to knock it out of round because I'm kind of far away from the chuck. It can happen, but I always just try to readjust it, take it out of the chuck and twist it a little bit, and usually I can get it back to true. But I made sure I tightened it really nice and tight. And that's the risk I'm running. I guess if I get a big catch, it's going to knock it out of true. So just trying not to get a catch there. I know that'll impact it. So now I can feel like the full thickness. The hardest part is keeping that wall thickness consistent at the top. And I did an okay job. There's a little dimple at the top. But next I'm going to talk about jam chucking. And jam chucking is a really good skill to learn, especially in like box making or anything like this. This is kind of like a lidded box in a sense, but being able to make a chuck with just an extra piece of wood is really good. I don't know how else you would mount this on the lathe without getting kind of creative and having an odd way to do it, but I'm just going to turn this down so it fits the inside of here. It's a friction fit. And that comes with a lot of practice, you know, and sizing it, getting it right, not getting too small, but the benefit of it is you can always just, you only use that much wood, you can just try again. So I'm just going to estimate here first. It's a lot of just trial and error, shutting the lathe off. You don't want to try to fit this while the lathe is still spinning. That usually doesn't work out. You can crack your piece or throw it somewhere. So I like to taper my, I guess I'll call this a tenon. I'll taper that down slightly, not very dramatically, just so, I don't know if you can see it on the top view, but it's very slightly tapered down, so it'll enter in at first and then be tight. And then once I see it can go on, I can go back and readjust the back of it. This is hard maple, like I said, so it's not the best wood for a jam chuck. It's a little too hard in my opinion. Okay, so here I fit it to that inner or secondary. I forgot what you call that, recess. But I kind of want to fit it towards the inside, so I have quite a ways to go still. I could try this, and that runs true, but I know it's just going to pop off right away. That's not a good enough fit. And also, when I get this to fit, I want it to fit all the way back on the shoulder of the wood, so I know it's true. Okay. So here I tapered it too much, and it's pretty loose over here, but I think I can take a little bit off just the back side and get it nice and tight. So, you know, be patient here. You don't want to take off too much wood. And this is, when you hear that, it's about to split. So be careful. Don't force it. Just take off a little bit. Make sure the shoulder's clear of chips. Okay. We'll see if that works. It might fly off, but it's a little looser than I would like. So I'm going to use a spindle gouge here. I'm just trying to clean this up and finish the top shape. I'm not too happy with my shape. It's kind of more oval than sphere. But that's okay. So you don't want long sleeves and turning is kind of controversial, but I'm going to be okay here because I rolled my sleeve up. Little passes. I could also probably add a paper towel to my jam chuck right now and make it tighter, you know. That doesn't always work out great, but that would be my next option if I didn't get it to fit. You see anything on the camera? Yeah, I guess you can. So just feeling it with my fingers. I want the curve to be nice and consistent. I think kind of the pointed top will fit this shape a little better than if I made it completely round. So it's got a slight point on the top. I would also sand that if I was going to try to finish it and get rid of my tool marks and make it nice and even. So I'll go ahead and take it off. I would pass this around now, but I'm going to need it for the next step. So does anybody have any questions on this piece? I'm going to swap out for the walnut piece now and make the funnel. Okay, so same thing with like the maple piece. I'm just going to chuck it in the better end right now. The worst end is sticking out, so I'm going to round it and put a tenon on that side and flip it around just like I did before.
Hey, Tyler.
Yeah.
I don't know if I missed it when I was walking around, but are you making the center part out of walnut just
Yeah.
for the color difference, or is there reason?
I could have made it, I guess, out of this maple piece. I'm kind of just doing it for color difference, and walnut works pretty good. Maple would work really good for that middle piece too. It's all about being able to drill that perfectly centered, and some woods don't work as good as walnut and maple are the two best I've found right now that are available to me. Okay, don't get distracted. Make sure I make this nice and tight. And back to the spindle roughing gouge. So this is a kind of a rough end, not square at all, but the only thing I'll do to accommodate for that is just make my tenon a little longer. I could remove all that, but not really necessary. What I'm talking about here is just that untrue rough edge. But that's just going to be waste wood, so why waste time on it? Okay, like I said before, I want it to be as true as possible, but not super crucial here. Looks good. Okay, see how our size looks. Yeah, we've got a ways to go. This walnut, it's got some funky grain going on, so it's not gonna be as easy to turn, but that's all right. Okay, I'm gonna start with turning the funnel at the bottom here. So I'm gonna use the spindle gouge to do that, and kind of like how I started hollowing this out, just gonna use the tip of the spindle gouge. I don't really need to do any back hollowing here because I'm just tapering this in. And this is where I'm going to fill it from. So the more concave, usually the better. I don't want it super concave, but a nice deep concave to it will work, be more functional. Okay, so just a trick to doing this cut. Watch the tip of the cutting edge where it hits the wood. I'm really starting high on the wood compared to the center point, and then I come down into the center and end right at the center when I'm at the bottom. All right, that should be good. And now at this point I would sand that surface, but I'm not going to do that right now. I'm going to drill it out. So I need to put my tailstock back up here.
I have a question, Tyler.
Yeah.
You're starting that cut above center.
Yeah.
What does that, how's that help?
It just, so it kind of helps me establish the cut. So I would say, and it helps it shear it better, I would say. If I'm just at center, it's less of a shear, but if I'm up high, I think the cutting edge is more engaged, I guess I would say, just the angle of it. Okay, so drill chuck. This is just a keyless drill chuck. I'm gonna look at the depth. So like that little one I passed around, I guess I'll grab it here. The stem, I want like a 1/4 inch or so from the top, so that salt has room to go up and around. So right here is what I'm talking. That's where I'm looking at right now, the length I'm going to make this. So just gonna kind of measure this out. It's okay if you drill this too long because the back is just gonna be waste wood. So I'll just go ahead and drill this the depth of this drill. And it's just a normal twist bit. It's about, I don't know the exact measurement, 1/8 of an inch. Slightly bigger maybe. But pretty small. You can kind of see it. Okay, so every time you start drilling on the lathe, I like to look at where the drill bit is hitting. And that kind of tells you how accurate the lathe is, how accurate the tailstock is to the headstock, or also how accurate my drill chuck is. That could be off. There's a few things that could be off. That's better. Okay, now it's lining straight up. Something was off. Okay, I don't want to start with the drill bit touching the wood. I want to be slightly off. A little too fast right here. I like to drill faster than most people, but faster, I mean faster RPMs. I like to go super slow with the tailstock quill, and especially for this. This is crucial that this is very centered. So super slow at the beginning. And I'm looking at the drill bit. I don't want it to twist at all and start vibrating back and forth. That means I'm getting off center. And if that were to happen, sometimes I can see how if I get going too fast, I can see a little vibration. I can raise the speed up, take it out so I can clear the chips. And sometimes if you raise the speed and just focus on going super slow, it can reestablish center and not drift as much. So it looks pretty good right now, but that's just a trick if you're getting off center. So go, 1/2 an inch, back it out. Back your quill all the way up so you're less extended, so there's more stability. And now once we're this far, we're pretty established, so it's not as likely that it's going to get off center, but clear those chips out still. And you hear that vibration? When that's not locked down, that means it's slightly off center, but should be all right. And I'm just going to go until these meet up. So that's a good reference point. Okay. I'm going to take this out now so it's not in my way so I don't hit it with my arm. And now the next step is going to be to fit this diameter down to fit in here, right on my lip, on the inside. So kind of like how we made the jam chuck, I'll just start by guesstimating and stopping sooner rather than later so I make sure it fits. Okay, got about a little ways to go. This walnut is kind of, like I said, the grain is a little weird right here, so it's not turning like the maple did. You can kind of see when I used the parting tool on the maple, nice ribbons were coming out. This is giving me more vibration and a little more grief. I want to chamfer that outside edge too. Okay, when you hear that, we're getting closer. It's pretty tight right now. This doesn't really need to be that tight. I don't want there to be a gap, but if it's too tight, it can just kind of mess with it. But I think that's good. I think if I sanded that, that would be nice and even fit. So now I have that established. I'm going to leave that alone. I'm going to switch to spindle gouge. Be really careful, I don't want to touch that, because it's at the final dimension. Now I have to be careful not to be too aggressive here, because I've chipped out this edge, and then you kind of have to restart after that. So just tape it so the wall thickness is kind of the same as it goes down with the funnel. The more wood I remove here, the more it can fit on the inside. So. Okay, just gonna remove some bulk wood there, and my drill, or actually, where's this? Just take a measuring device and see how deep this is. So it goes all the way back to here. I want it about 1/4 inch, maybe 3/8 of an inch, less than that. So I'm just gonna kind of remember in my head where that's at, right there. Not being too precise on this. Don't bring that down too far because I'm still working over here. But that's going to be the end of my stem. Now all that's left is remove the bulk. I like to just kind of step it back like that, use nice consistent cuts, taking off consistent amounts of wood. Because I'm getting thinner and thinner. I don't want to break it. And I have to remember that there's a hole going through the inside, so it's even weaker because of that. Kind of going to remove some of this to give me more access. It's going to vibrate now because I'm pretty thin on the other side. Okay, I'm gonna switch to my smaller skew chisel, and I'm gonna turn the speed up a little bit. I want a smaller skew here just so I can fit it in here and get more room to work with. And this is a planing cut just to get it nice and smooth and flat. You can make it straight, this stem you can make straight, or you can put a bunch of details in it, but nobody's ever gonna see it really. It never comes out. So just making it straight is probably the best bet. And if my hole on the inside is about 1/8 of an inch, diameter here, probably, I don't know, 3/8, 1/4 of an inch. All right, so that looks good. Now the last thing is just to part this off. So that top there is kind of important because that's where the salt falls into. In the past, I've tried to cut it kind of at an angle so it's more funneled at the top, so it brings more salt into it. But I think with some of the ones I've made that that it's too much salt. So I think just a flat top is the best way to do it. And this is just the long point of the skew. So now we get to see how centered my drill bit was. So, not too bad. So then I can go back with a drill and clean this up. I've also made, kind of funneled the top with the drill bit like this. if you want more salt, but you can kind of adjust it. So I think right where that's at is going to work pretty good. All right, it's probably not going to fit right now, so I'm going to have to go back and readjust it. So you see how it's kind of protruding out? Yeah. So next step is going to be putting it back on the lathe. So how the heck do you mount this thing back on the lathe? You got a perfect jam chuck right here for this to drive it. And then you're going to take your live center, and I take out the little stub on the inside, or the spur drive. Not spur drive, the little pointed thing, whatever you call that. Little pointed thing, yeah. And so now it's a cup center, I guess you'd call it, and that's going to fit perfect. You can't use a pointed center because my hole isn't perfectly centered, but the cup obviously is going to keep it centered. All right, so just one last step to get this to fit better. Makes it run nice and true. I don't want to snug it too much. Get my tool rest closer. And I'm going to take the tip of the skew and make a small, kind of a shoulder right there. And I'm remembering how deep I made that recess in there. That's going to be the length of my rim that I'm making. But I want to be careful. I don't want to go through it all the way. So we'll do our trial and error again. Take it off. See if it fits. Okay, that's close. It's a little better. Actually, it fits pretty good, but it's still protruding out a little bit. And I'm not going to be able to get that out now. I think I can. I can probably do this. Yeah. So, just one last fix. Make my rim a little thinner. And clean it up. Now it should fit perfectly in there, just like that. So, I don't want it to stick out at all. I want that maple to be the foot of it where it sits. And then I would just use epoxy or CA glue to secure it in there, because it really never has to come out. You just fill it from the bottom and shake it like this, like I showed. Any questions on that? Thank you guys.